Hi everybody, Deegan here. Gonna do another Nightblade video, kind of going in depth with a lot of the class abilities, different builds for leveling, builds when you get into VR content, stuff like that. We'll go through how my setup is right now as far as gear goes, and what abilities I'm using, and then we'll go into an in-depth look at all of the abilities. So currently right now, again, I'm VR6. I don't have any food or anything going on right now, but I'm just below max magicka cap. I'm 19 magicka, 30 health. I feel like this is kind of a good balance between health and magicka. If you eat food, you're pretty much putting yourself at the max health cap anyways, so going much over that doesn't really make sense. And the more magicka you get, the better with my current build. I am a vampire on this character too, so my magic recovery is very, very high. I'm almost at 100 magicka recovery, overcharged by 25, so it's quite a bit. I am wearing 7 pieces of light armor. Now, while I was leveling, I actually used medium armor for the longest time, and then I started realizing that I wasn't really using a whole lot of weapon abilities. I didn't really like the weapon abilities compared to my class abilities, so I started to switch it up and go light armor, and I've been liking my build more and more ever since. So, but if we go in and we look at my light armor and my medium armor, I respect a lot of times. I think I've respect 4 times on this character, so about 80,000 gold I've spent just on respecking my character and trying out different stuff. But yeah, I've moved all my points out of medium armor. Now I like medium armor. I'm playing a Khajiit as well. I wish I wouldn't have rolled a Khajiit on this character, because while it's awesome and you know, the bonuses for your racial that are giving you the you know, stealth radius improvement, which is really nice, and increases the damage done while stealth, so that definitely helps with the bursty style Nightblade. I feel like I probably could have been better off with maybe like a Breton or something like that, but you know, that's kind of besides the point of this video. But yeah, as you can see, as far as my armor, the whole time leveling up too, I think it's smart to try to go 5 pieces of light, medium, or heavy, and then wear 1 piece of each of the other 2 armor types, just to keep all your armor leveling while you're leveling. Also, while I was leveling, I did level completely in dual wield. I have pretty extensive testing with all the dual wield abilities. I like the dual wield abilities. I think they're great, especially Blood Craze. This is the only one that I've kept on my bar. But it's a great ability, and it's awesome for soloing stuff, world bosses. That extra health that you get from Blood Craze can be really, really nice. Well, let's go into the class abilities. So, on a Nightblade, your first class tree is Assassination. Your ultimate starts out as Deathstroke. There's 2 morphs for this. The first morph, the one that I like most, is Soul Harvest. So Soul Harvest does the same damage, but what happens is you passively increase your ultimate recharge from successful kills while it's slotted. So basically every 2 kills you get while this ultimate's on your bar, you have another ultimate charge. So obviously you'll do more damage the more you build your charge up. So at I think 2,040% is the highest you can get. Excuse me. 2,040% I think is about as high as you can get it. I think that's the cap. You'll get the most damage out of it, but basically every 2 kills you can use this ability, and it's awesome because it crits from stealth. So it's a very awesome thing with the Nightblade. You can one-shot most bosses while leveling through the 1 to VR1 area. When you start getting into the VR content, you won't be able to quite one-shot bosses, but you can get pretty dang close. I think it's awesome. The other morph for this is it's like an incapacitating strike or something like that. Basically, it's the exact same thing, except you stun them if you have less health than the target you're attacking. So I find that to be more of like a PvP thing, and in some rare cases it can be useful in PvE, but honestly I feel like Soul Harvest is just better. The faster you build your ultimate up while you're leveling, the better. Same thing in PvP, honestly. If you're in a PvP fight and you're fighting 2 or 3 enemies and you're fighting, you kill one, and you auto attack a few times, chances are you're going to have that ultimate up again ready, and if you shadowy disguise and use the ultimate again, you can get another guaranteed crit. So it's just another high critting ability that a Nightblade has, and it's really awesome for PvP. But that's the ultimate that I choose for my my setup while leveling. I use this pretty much the whole way. I really like the ultimate here too in Shadow. I'll go over all the ultimates first, and then we'll break down the classes. So your second ultimate is pretty great. It works out really well for both. I morphed it to Bolstering Darkness because I have actually got into healing a little bit on the Nightblade, which I'll explain why it actually works really well on the Nightblade, because the Wrestle Staff synergizes incredibly well on a Nightblade. But Bolstering Darkness is pretty nice because it creates a kind of a ground area. It doesn't do any damage. There's two more, so one of them does damage and snares. The other one, it lets them take your allies take less damage, but instead you can grant them healing over 4 seconds. So it's a little bit different. But I have chosen to go with Bolstering Darkness. The other one, Veil of Blades, is absolutely amazing. It does a lot of damage. It stays on the ground for a long time. You can see it lasts for over 17 seconds, which is a very long time, and it does a lot of damage, especially in AoE situations. But because I decided to go more the healing route with this ultimate, I went with Bolstering Darkness. And then same thing in siphoning. You actually have 2 different ways to morph your siphoning. So Soul Shred is the beginning of this one. It's awesome. It does kind of it's a weird ability too, and this ability also can crit from stealth, but it's really weird. It says the radius is 15 meters, but that's not actually the radius of the damage. The damage is actually probably like a 5-meter radius, so you have to be right on top of people for you to actually get the damage for this. But the radius in which your allies can activate the Soul Leech is 15, so the tooltip for this is a little odd. But it can absolutely crit from stealth. I have it critting at about 1.5k in like Veteran 5 content. But again, once again, I have morphed this ability to be more of a utility healing ability. It's actually quite the burst heal for a Nightblade in an AoE group scenario. So 3 allies take 189 healing every 0.5 seconds. That's a lot of healing, and it's very quick, and it lasts for 3 seconds, so that's quite a bit of healing. It's pretty awesome. The other one is Soul Tether. Soul Tether, what that does is it basically does the damage and then leashes to the closest target to you, and it does kind of a damage over time effect for 4 seconds or something like that on that target. It does pretty good damage, and it's a pretty good way to morph the ultimate. If you plan on using it as your PvE leveling ultimate, it does quite well. I would rather prefer Deathstroke because it's more bursty, but yeah, Soul Tether's pretty good. Alright, let's go back to Assassination. We'll go through these abilities. So your first ability in the Nightblade is Assassin's Blade. It's basically just an execute. There's only 2 classes that really have an execute, and that is the Nightblade and the Sork. I think the Nightblade's execute is better. I think it can hit for more, and it can crit from stealth as well, which is pretty cool. But basically, this ability, when targets get below 25% health, you do a bunch of bonus damage. This ability crits very, very hard. And it's an awesome way. It's an awesome ability to spam on a boss when they start to get below that health threshold. It's going to be a lot of DPS really quickly too, as long as you have the magicka for it. The 2 morphs for this ability, one of them is Impale, which basically just morphs it into a ranged execute, which is great. A lot of people really like that one, but as far as for what I chose, Killer's Blade is absolutely amazing. So Killer's Blade, it's basically the same thing as Assassin's Blade, but when you kill a target with it, you get healed for 18% of your max health. That's a lot of health. That's a lot of healing. And when you're constantly going from pole to pole to pole and you're trying to level very quickly, that health regen is huge, especially if you're playing a vampire Nightblade, which I think, again, I'll explain in a little while why a vampire works so well with a Nightblade, but Killer's Blade is amazing. It is absolutely, in my opinion, something that you'll have on your bar. And as far as my leveling spec goes, this is something that I had in my 5 slot the whole way leveling. it's always on there. The only reason it's not on there right now is because I was doing a burst damage Nightblade build, showing how high I could get a crit with my Nightblade, but this is an ability that's always on my bar. It's amazing, and one of the other reasons why this is such an amazing ability is you can see it costs 149 magicka. Now, that's a little bit cheaper because I'm wearing 7 pieces of light armor, so my magicka cost reduction is reduced quite significantly. But if you go down here to Executioner, you see killing an enemy with an assassination ability restores 168 magicka over 6 seconds. 168 magicka regen over 6 seconds. The ability only cost me 149. So I'm actually gaining magicka by killing a target with Killer's Blade. It's a very, very good ability. Alright, the other ability is Teleport Strike. As you can see, my Teleport Strike not only is rank 5, I guess, but it's also Ambush and Lotus Fan are both maxed out as well. I've messed around with different builds with both of those. I like this ability. I think it's good in certain scenarios. It can crit from stealth, which is awesome. As long as you're attacking a target while stealth from the side or behind them, you can crit with this ability, which is really cool. However, I feel like it fails in comparison as an opener for a lot of reasons to Veiled Strike, and I'll go over that in a little bit. But Teleport Strike is a great ability. The first morph for it is Ambush. Basically, you hit one target, and then your next target on that same target, it gets bonus damage, which is pretty cool. The bonus damage is nice, and if I was playing in PvP and I wanted a good gap closer and I wasn't using a two-handed weapon for crit charge, I would probably put Teleport Strike in my bar in certain scenarios, or at least have it on my my secondary weapon set. The other morph is Lotus Fan. Lotus Fan makes your Teleport Strike do less damage on the target you're hitting, but does AoE damage around the target you're hitting as well. So it's pretty awesome. Again, that ability can crit from stealth. It crits for a lot less because obviously you're hitting for a lot less compared to Ambush, because it does almost 2 times as much damage. But it is also a snare too. So not only are you you're jumping in and you're getting AoE damage, but you're also snaring everything. So I've messed around with a couple builds where you're playing like a Warlock type build, and you can actually Lotus Fan in and snare everything, and then drop Path of Flames or Wall of Elements, and then drop your Path of Darkness, which is pretty cool because you could kind of kite around a little bit with that. But again, I don't use it that much. I did use it while leveling for a little while, but then I just started using Shadowy Disguise and Veiled Strike, and I'll go over why that's so good in a second. The next ability is Blur. Blur is one of those abilities where I feel like you'll never use unless you're playing kind of a bruiser tanky kind of Nightblade. It's not necessarily a bad ability, but I don't think it's worth keeping on your bar while leveling. I did level this ability for a little bit on my other Nightblade I played back in the PTS, so I have seen both morphs for this. Both morphs are okay. The first morph, it gives your additional evasion for the first few seconds after you use this ability, and then the other one gives you a chance to set enemies off balance that are attacking you that miss. So it's a good ability, absolutely, but I don't think it's that great. The problem with it is it fits a very specific type build, and it's not the best ability outside of certain scenarios or certain builds. But that's Blur. The next ability is Mark Target. Mark Target is one of those abilities that I didn't really like right away, and it took some playing around with it to really understand how it works, but I absolutely love this ability. Mark Target, what it does is it makes you able to bypass a lot of the target's armor and spell resistance, but then in return that target, if they're attacking you, ignores your armor and spell resistance. So it's kind of that's the trade-off, you kill them quickly or they do more damage to you, but it's absolutely awesome. I love this ability. The morphs for it are the first morph is a PvP morph. Through and through, it's a PvP morph, and I used it in PvP a lot. It's actually rank 5 for my PvP side of this morph. But what it does is you mark a target, and if they go stealth and they're hidden, you can actually still see them. And as we know, Reaper's Mark lasts for 60 seconds, so it's kind of a pain in the butt if you get hit with Reaper's Mark or I can't remember what the other one's called. I can't remember what it's called on the other side for the other morph. But if you get hit with it in PvP and you're stealth, it's just, oh crap. You know, you better just back up and get away from people, because even though it says you're hidden, you're not. You're going to be seen. For PvE though, right now I'm using Reaper's Mark, and the reason Reaper's Mark is so great is you get a lot of health return upon killing an enemy. So if you're ever pulling a group of large enemies, 3 or 4, and as you know on a Nightblade, pulling groups of 3 or 4 enemies can get a bit squirrely at times if you don't know what you're doing. So kind of a good way to use Reaper's Mark in a scenario where you're leveling solo is put Reaper's Mark on a target that you know has low armor and that you can kill pretty quickly. So what you'll do is you put it on a low target, and you go and you'll one-shot one of the targets basically, and then you'll start attacking another target. If things start to get hairy, then just turn and kill a target that you have your Reaper's Mark on, and you'll get 60% of your health back, and then you'll get the weapon and spell power bonus as well, which is really nice. But that's kind of how I use it. It's also pretty interesting because you can stack this ability on top of itself. So if you kill one target that has marked target on it, you get the 15 spell power and weapon damage, and then you can Reaper's Mark another target, and if you kill that target, you're stacking that on top of each other. It doesn't refresh the cooldown. It does, however, if you have one kill that got 30 seconds, and then 5 seconds later you kill another one, you have one that's at 25 seconds and one that's at 30 seconds. So effectively they'll be overlapped for 25 seconds. So it's pretty cool, and you can stack that as many times as you can kill things. So it's pretty awesome. And then we have Haste. So Haste is one of those abilities that I have leveled up, and I gotta say, I don't really like this ability. It works for a couple builds that are more weapon damage based builds, like dual daggers, you know, more sustained type damage. But as far as leveling goes, this is an ability that I would not suggest you try to use while leveling through VR content. It can work in some scenarios. It might be one of those abilities that you put on your bar on the side that you don't really use, but you're just leveling it. That totally is fine, but there's 2 morphs for this ability. One of them gives you passive stamina regen, or gives you a stamina regen while you have the ability running, which is pretty great. It allows you to attack quickly and use your weapon damage based abilities quite a bit. So it's not a bad ability, again, but it's one of those abilities that's more focused on higher sustain outside of burst damage. So for leveling, I think burst damage is the way to go, and I'll explain why at the end of this video. And the other morph for Haste is one that every X amount of hits you immobilize your target. Now that one is probably a morph that will never be used. Let's be honest. I don't know one person that's morphed Haste into the incapacity. I don't even know what it's called, honestly. But basically, it adds an immobilization I think every time you level it up, you get 1 less hit. So I think at max it's 6 hits you get an immobilization. It's just not really worth it. Even in PvP, I don't see it being worth it. With all the gap closures and things that we have access to, Haste just doesn't seem worth it to me. And it kind of stinks too, because it's the last ability in the assassination tree, and I just feel like it fails in comparison to a lot of other abilities that you can put on your bar, which is kind of sad, you know? You feel like the last ability in the assassination tree would be worth using, but I just don't feel like it is. I don't feel like it's that great of an ability. And then for the passives, we have Master Assassin. The reason I only have 1 ability in this is I actually was testing the weapon damage from stealth last night. Really, this only applies to actually using an attack, a weapon attack, and generally from stealth you're going to use Failed Strike to one-shot enemies. So this absolutely has no application. It could be used if you want to use weapon damage from stealth. I know a couple weapon damage abilities crit from stealth. I know Hidden Blade crits from stealth. Blood Craze, both attacks crit from stealth. I just don't think it's worth it though. I have chosen to not put points in this, and I will not put points in this. I wish I wouldn't have put this point in, but again, for testing purposes, I did put points into it. Executioner is an absolute must-have. As soon as you can put points into this, do it. I would generally say don't put points into passives when you're leveling a character until you're about level 15 to 20. Once you have both of your bar set up and you have morphs done. But this is a one that I would make an exception for. It is amazing. The Magicka regen is incredibly good. That paired with the health you get from Killer's Blade is so good for leveling. It's perfect. So put points into Executioner. It's amazing. Pressure points is good. Increase critical strike rating by 3 for each assassination ability slotted. Now this is critical strike rating, so it applies to both your spells and your weapon damage. And I really only use Killer's Blade, and sometimes while leveling I use Reaper's Mark, so that's 6% crit right there from that. It's pretty good. And then Hemorrhage, increased bonus critical strike damage by 10%. Again, this is why I play my Nightblade as a burst damage Nightblade, especially while leveling. It works really well, and there's a lot of factors into that, and Hemorrhage is definitely one of them. So that's it for the Assassination Tree. Let's go to Shadow Tree. We talked about the ultimate already. Alright, now the only 2 abilities, the only 3 abilities that I would say you must have on your bar while leveling a Nightblade, because it will make your life so easy, is Shadow Cloak, which allows you to go invisible, morphed into Shadowy Disguise. Shadowy Disguise, basically what it does is it gives you, at max rank, 100% crit chance for the duration. So you go invisible for almost 3 seconds, and then you have 100% crit. So the reason this is so awesome is if you look at what Veiled Strike does, again, my Veiled Strike is morphed into Concealed Weapon, which gives me passive movement speed. The reason I did this is more for PvP. I like the movement speed while stealth, and PvP helps me kind of move around a little bit quickly more while stealth, catch up to people that aren't suspecting it. However, the other morph, which is Surprise Attack, is probably better for leveling because it will reduce enemies' armor for duration. So probably for leveling, I would say go with Surprise Attack if you really want to. But if you're planning on going more PvP come endgame and you don't want to worry about a respec, just go with Concealed Weapon. I think it's great. I love this ability, and the movement speed is definitely good. But the reason these 2 abilities are so amazing is the first kind of way you open with your Nightblade is always you want to be stealth. So actually we'll go in here real quick too while this is going. But you always want to be stealthed. You get a huge bonus crit chance, a huge bonus crit damage when you attack from stealth, especially with melee abilities. And there are certain abilities in this game that are class abilities that are considered melee damage abilities, as long as they're not considered an AoE melee damage ability, that do a ton of damage from stealth. So one of the reasons why Veiled Strike is so amazing, so we got this Droger here, he's got 2300 health. He's kind of up against the wall, so I don't know if I'll be able to get a crit. But if I just go in and kind of stand at the side, see I actually did, I got 2100 damage crit. And it stuns him for, I don't even remember how much it is, 4.6 seconds. And they're set off balance. So the reason this is so amazing is you're almost one-shotting enemies, and the reason I say that is because even if you Concealed Weapon hit somebody from stealth, you pretty much will, if they're not dead, they'll be close enough to where you can Killer's Blade them and instantly kill them. It basically meaning you spent almost no Magicka at all, 213 Magicka. That's basically all you spent to kill them, which is just incredible. So you kill one enemy right out of the bat, and then all you do is you Shadowy Disguise again, and then you Veiled Strike another target, and then that target is stunned and set off balance. So you can heavy attack them and knock them down as well, and then you can just repeat this over and over and over and over again. And that's why I feel leveling up your Nightblade as more of a Magicka-based character is so much better. You can stun lock bosses. It's just incredible. Now, I am using a Resto Staff right now, but you absolutely don't have to use a Resto Staff. I have people ask me this all the time. Say, well, what if I want to use a bow? Okay. We put a bow on. Which way do I have to go here? We got to go this way. So now I'm using a bow, right? So we go in. It doesn't do as much damage, right? Not as much damage because I get a huge bonus damage, 10% from using the Resto Staff. So it only did about 1900, but it's the same thing. I mean, all you do is you just go in and you Veiled Strike. It's so easy. It's the easiest thing ever. And you can do it with a bow, you can do it with sword and board, you can do dual wield, two-hand. It absolutely doesn't matter. However you want to play your character, you can totally do it with Shadowy Disguise and Veiled Strike or Concealed Weapon if you morph it that way. I love it. It's so easy to level that way. The only three abilities you really absolutely need on your bar for leveling is Shadowy Disguise, Concealed Weapon, or Surprise Attack, whichever one you morph it to, and Killer's Blade. These other two abilities on here, Reaper's Mark and those, you can put anything you want in these two slots if you want to level them. For me, what I did is because I knew I wanted to use a Resto Staff eventually, I put like Illustrious Healing on there, and then I think I had a bow ability, Poison Arrow or something was on there. Now again, I respec out of this, but you could put Poison Arrow on there or something, and even though, well, I guess it doesn't matter for this, but if I put Dual Wield or something and I wanted to level Blood Craze, let's just say that, even though I don't have those abilities equipped, not only will they level, but it will also level it'll level your Dual Wield, and it will level your Resto Staff. So really that's all you need. And if you feel like you need a little bit more sustain with certain boss fights, when we get into the Siphoning Tree, I'll explain what abilities to use there. But that's really the only three abilities that you need on a Nightblade to level effectively. The other abilities on the Shadow Tree, let's talk about this though. So we got Path of Darkness, which I was very excited for this ability. I was very excited for it months ago when I got into PTS, and eventually when I leveled up my Nightblade to a level where I could use it, I was pretty let down. It's not a very good ability. Even Twisting Path is one of those abilities. It's the more damaging, it's the more damage heavy ability on the Nightblade. We can show what it looks like here. It basically just kind of goes out in front of you. You move faster on the path, and things take damage. It's not very good, however. The damage is pretty negligible. I don't really see it being worth using in any build. I do have a build that's more of like a Warlock style build with a Destro Staff, and it's interesting. But I feel like I could remove this ability from my bar, and I wouldn't even notice it being gone. The damage on it is just it's not good enough. It's not good enough. I like it for the movement speed in PvP. You can do some pretty trolly stuff in PvP with Path of Darkness, but it's not very good. The other morph outside of Twisting Path, which again is the damage morph, the other morph is Refreshing Path. And what that one does is gives you a heal. And the heal is actually pretty good. It seems like it's low, but I'm not sure if it's bugged or not, but I feel like it sometimes double or triple ticks on you. So it's a little bit weird how it works. I'm not exactly sure if it's a bug or what's going on with the ability. But for like a high sustain kind of AoE-ish build, excuse me, I could see Refreshing Path being used every now and then, or maybe even for a tank build if you wanted to just kind of throw Refreshing Path and stand on it. It might be worth it. I don't think it's amazing, but it's not terrible. Twisting Path though, the damage is not worth it. You're better off getting less damage and the heal. Alright, the next one is another ability that I've been kind of disappointed with, but it has a couple cool ways you can use it. So the other one is, I can't remember what I think it's Aspect of Terror or something is what it's called. Basically, it's the AoE fear around you. The problem with this ability is it costs a ton of magicka to use and really only has a fear. There's nothing else. It's just a fear for 4 seconds. The great thing about this ability, though, is if you want to play kind of a Warlock, fear, dot type build, the damage doesn't break the CC with this ability, which is pretty cool. I have this morphed to where I drop kind of a thing on the ground behind me. So I morphed it this way for PvP. I wanted to have an ability where I could kind of book it if I needed to and drop this, and if they ran over it, they'd be feared. So it's kind of trolly, but it's pretty neat. But it costs a ton of magicka to use. It's definitely not something you can just spam. The other one, what it does is the other morph for this outside of Manifestation of Terror. What it does, it's an AoE fear right around you. It fears, I think, 3 enemies or 4 enemies. I can't remember what the cap is on that. But what it does is after the fear ends, their damage is reduced. So that can be pretty interesting in PvP as well. If you're in like a 1v1 type fight and you want to pop that and fear them and then have their damage reduced when they come out. I mean, they might be able to break out of the fear right away, but their damage is still reduced at the end of it. So it's pretty good. It's not the most amazing ability again, and it's something that I feel like fits very specific builds. It doesn't really fit my build unless I'm doing certain things, but it's kind of a fun ability to use. Not the greatest ability, but it does have certain scenarios where it's going to be used. Again, tanking as well. This could be a good ability for a tank if you want to pop this and reduce the damage you're taking from certain mobs. It can definitely work. And then we have Summon Shade. So I have messed around with this ability very extensively, not only through the PTS, but through live. I just morphed it a little bit ago to test the other side of this because I saw in the patch notes that they're looking at increasing the damage the Dark Shades do as you increase the level. So I wanted to see how much damage they do. It's pretty bad. I'll show you guys. You see these guys just pounding away on this guy, doing no damage to him. It's not very good. They do no damage. It's pretty bad. Dark Shades, just not a good ability. I would definitely say do not use Dark Shades. Okay, the Shades deal 15% less damage, and attacked enemies deal 15% less damage. But that 15% less damage in VR content is so negligible. Things are hitting you for so hard anyways. I feel like what usefulness they do as far as damage is completely, it's just not there. It's not worth it. The 15% less damage the mobs attacking you will do is not worth casting this ability. Now the other one actually has usefulness. The other one is one that allows you to teleport. It creates a stationary shade instead of two melee ones that's shooting a bow. What happens with this is if you move away from that shade and then you use the ability again, you teleport back to that shade. Now, this is a pretty interesting ability, mainly for PvP. I can see some scenarios with some vet dungeons where it would be useful to kind of quickly get yourself out of a scenario and teleport away from something. But really, the bonus comes in PvP. It's pretty cool. You can troll people pretty hard, especially if you put a two-handed weapon on. You're using crit charge. So if you're using crit charge and you drop this shade and you crit charge in, you can instantly teleport back to your shade and crit charge in again. So the burst damage is pretty awesome. You can do some pretty cool stuff. There's also different scenarios where you can play kind of like a quick, I'm going to get in this group of enemies and get out type thing where you drop the shade, you ambush in, you shadowy disguise, veiled strike, death stroke, killer's blade, and then try to teleport out. There's all different kinds of usefulness for that ability in PvP. Again, not the best ability for PvP, but a pretty cool ability. The other side of the morph for this is pretty cool. But I wouldn't suggest using either of these abilities while you're leveling. They're not really abilities that you're going to use, or Twisting Path by Path of Darkness. The only really two abilities that you want from this tree on your bar are Shadowy Disguise and Concealed Weapon. And also, if you are leveling and you don't plan on healing late game, going Veil of Blades instead of Bolstering Darkness and putting that on your AoE bar is very, very smart, because the damage from Veil of Blades is very good, and it will help you in a lot of AoE scenarios. As far as the passives, Refreshing Shadows, good passive if you're going weapon damage, stamina type thing. Increase stamina regeneration by 30% for 6 seconds when a shadow ability is activated. So it's more for keeping your stamina regen, while you're in a sustained fight. I don't think it's that great for what I'm doing, but I do have points in it. Shadow Barrier is probably the best passive for the entire Shadow skill tree. Increases armor and spell resistance by 1750 for 4 seconds when coming out of stealth or invisibility. If you look right now at what I have, I'm already overcharged with spell resistance. I'm not with armor because obviously I'm wearing light armor. The reason this is so crazy is if I just stand up right here, that's what I have. It's pretty insane, and it makes you incredibly tanky when coming out of stealth on a Nightblade, and a lot of people don't realize it. But one of the reasons why having a build where you're actually using Shadowy Disguise and Veiled Strike is you're constantly going in and out of stealth with invisibility. So it makes you take less damage. It's a really awesome passive and probably slightly overpowered. It's a very, very, very strong passive. Shadowy Barrier or Shadow Barrier is definitely something you want to put points to. Fortitude with a Shadow ability slotted, increased max health by 3% for each Shadow ability slotted. This is also really good. 3% health doesn't seem like a whole lot, but when you're talking about 2,000 to 3,000 health, it adds up quite a bit. So it's definitely worth getting. Not most amazing thing, especially because as a Nightblade while leveling, you really shouldn't be taking a whole lot of damage anyways. But sometimes you have to take damage, you know, and the health is definitely good. And then Dark Veil, increase the duration of shadow abilities by 15%. This is definitely something you're going to want to put points into come late game. Again, not something that you have to put points into right away. Really the only reason that you want this is because it gives you a little bit longer on your Shadowy Disguise. So in PvP it allows you to, you know, because you can sit here and spam. I can run all the way to the end of this dungeon with just Shadowy Disguise, which is pretty cool. But in PvP it's the same thing. You know, sometimes you want to be able to just, alright, well crap, I got myself in a bad situation, let's try to get out of here. And that helps a little bit. Definitely helps a little bit. But that's it for the Shadow Tree. Alright, on to Siphoning. So Siphoning, Swallow Soul is an absolutely amazing ability. One of the best abilities that a Nightblade has in general. What it does is it does initial damage to a target and heals the player for 25% of the damage inflicted every 2 seconds for 10 seconds. Players also receive 10% more healing from all sources while this ability is slotted. Now that is the Swallow Soul morph. The other morph is Funnel Health, which doesn't give you the 10% more healing from all sources while the ability is slotted, and it allows it to heal 2 additional targets, two allies. So Swallow Soul is more for healing yourself. If you were going to play a healing Nightblade and you want to be a healer, probably Funnel Health would be better to use than Swallow Soul. But both amazing abilities. While I was leveling, this was an ability I had in my 4 slot the entire time. The entire time Swallow Soul was on my 4 slot. And again, I really like this ability as well because having just one siphoning ability on your bar gives you 8% maximum magicka. Now 8% maximum magicka is absolutely incredible. That's a lot of magicka just for having one ability slotted. And when you're talking about, you know, 2,000 max magicka, 8% is quite a bit. And any magicka you get on top of what you have is going to make all your class abilities do more damage. So, and again, if you read this, what it says is heals the player for 25% of the damage inflicted every 2 seconds. So if you crit with this ability, your heal is going to be better for that time. If you just hit for the 357, you're going to have a little bit less healing. And this ability can crit, which is awesome. It's a great ability. Definitely worth keeping on your bar. Alright, now we're going to talk about Agony. So Agony is one of those abilities that I really had hopes for when I first heard about this game a long time ago and I decided I was going to play a Nightblade. The problem with Agony is that if you can't stun the enemy, if the enemy that you're trying to cast this on can't be stunned, you don't get the damage. You can't cast the ability on them. Which kind of blows, because if you wanted to play kind of a Warlock dot-based build, Agony would be absolutely great for a build like that. But in boss fights, you can't cast Agony on them. It would be nice if maybe in the future Zos would let us put this on a target and just get the damage from it, but not get the stun, obviously. I've tried both morphs for this ability. Prolonged Suffering is the one that makes them take more damage when coming out of the stun, and then the other one is an AoE damage around the target, and the one that does more damage to the single target is definitely better than the one that does the AoE damage. The AoE damage is very bad. It's not a lot of damage. It can crit, but it's not worth it. The single target one is way better. But overall, I don't feel like this is an ability I would put on my bar. If you ever get in scenarios where you're really having trouble killing like large packs of enemies, 3 or 4, maybe 5 enemies, this could be useful. It's got quite a high magicka cost, but it could be useful if you open from stealth, kill one target, instantly cast or cast agony on a target, a mage or something, just kind of keep them out of the fight. It can help, but I don't feel like it's worth putting points into generally. The other one is Cripple. Now, I like Cripple a lot. Cripple is a great ability. They did nerf the damage, they nerfed the movement speed siphoning, so you used to move a lot faster, and they did nerf that, which is kind of a bummer because it was really awesome back in the PTS a few months ago. But it's a great ability, and it does a lot of damage. It's one of the few abilities in this game that does damage over time that actually has a significant amount of damage. It's 530 magic damage over 8 seconds. Now, again, this is based on my maximum magic pool, my spell damage, so it's a little bit different for everybody. But I'm getting 530 damage over 8 seconds, and on impact it deals 127 magic damage and immobilizes for 1.5 seconds. This is Crippling Grasp. This is the morph for Cripple. The other morph is, I think it slows the weapon attacks or something of the target that you have crippled. So it has some uses for sure, but I feel like Crippling Grasp is a superior choice as far as the morphs go for this ability. Great ability though, I love it. It works really good for dot damage based builds. And again, I don't really think dot damage based builds are great on the Nightblade, but it's definitely not bad. It's a good ability. Alright, the other ability we have is Siphoning Strikes. So this ability is a little buggy, and there's some problems with it. I'm pretty sure right now, instead of the 4% magicka health and stamina return, we're getting about 2.4% from what people have tested. It's going to be fixed in the future. I'm pretty sure I read it in patch notes or the AUA on Reddit. But it's getting fixed. Right now I have mine morphed to Siphoning Attacks, which gives me a chance to restore some magicka as well. The other morph is a higher chance to restore health. So 15% chance to restore your health. For my build though, with a Nightblade, restoring health, you already have so many abilities that can restore your health with Killer's Blade and Swallow Soul. I figured the magicka was more important, especially if I want to play a healer. Turning this ability on in the middle of a fight with using a Wrestle Staff and just getting your magicka back really quickly, I think is more useful than the health. I just don't think the health one is all that great unless you're playing a weapon damage based build with like Blood Craze, Degeneration, and Siphoning Strikes, and you're trying to get a lot of health regen. But for my build, I like Siphoning Attacks more, but the other one is fine too. Again, this ability, I feel like the weapon and spell damage reduction might be a little high for this ability to be worth using all the time. 25% is a large number. When you're talking about, let's see, how much do we have? We have almost 100 spell damage and 126 weapon damage. Now the reason that this is so big, 25% of 100 is 25. So it is very hard to get spell damage or weapon damage in ESO outside of certain abilities. There's very few items in this game that give you weapon damage or spell damage outside of your neck piece and your 2 rings. So it's a very important stat. About 10 spell damage will add on a 2000 crit almost 200 damage, just 10 spell power. It is a huge number. So having 25% of that gone it's just not very good. Unless you really need to regen your resources, it's something that you will constantly have to be toggling. I would never suggest anybody just leave this on all the time. You're going to severely nerf your damage. So that's something that you need to be aware of with this ability. And then we have this last ability, Power Extraction. Again, this is the morph for, I can't remember what it's called, Power something, whatever. But this ability is great. I've tried both sides of this as well. The other side of this is called like Essence Drain or something like that. And basically what that one does is it increases your weapon damage still. but it also, for every enemy you hit, heals your surrounding allies for a certain amount, and it's increased by 20% for each enemy you hit. Now, it sounds great, but I feel like the heal is pretty lackluster compared to pretty much every other heal, so I went back in respect, and now I'm into power extraction, and I like it a lot more, especially for healing. If people don't know by now, both your Destro staff and your Resto staff are both scaling off your weapon damage, not your spell damage. So that is why, one of the reasons why healing on a Nightblade is so good. You can basically max out your weapon damage with this, especially if you have a DK in your party giving you ingenious weapons. Your weapon damage will be out of the park when you use this ability in an AoE pull. You will be healing for a ton, and I love this ability. It's really, really, really good. And power extraction, all it does is basically increases the maximum number of targets you can hit from 6 to 9. So I really like this ability, especially for healing. It really kicks up your damage. Also, if you're playing like a Warlock style build with a Destro staff on a Nightblade, this is definitely an ability you're going to want. It's going to make all your damage stronger with the Destro staff. It'll make your Wall of Elements do more damage, Destructive Touch will do more damage, everything in here. Impulse, if you're an Impulse spammer, it'll make all that do more damage. It's very strong. Very, 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 very strong. Alright. And then as far as the passives go, Catalyst, increased potion effectiveness by 20. Not all super amazing, but when you start getting some awesome potions, and again, I've started making some pretty awesome potions recently, when you have like elixirs of spell power that increasing your spell damage, spell crit, all that stuff, 20% on that doesn't seem like a whole lot, but again, when we're talking about 10 spell damage giving you almost 200 damage on a 2000 crit, not saying you're going to be critting all the time for 2000, but you can see kind of how the damage works with that. It's definitely something that you're going to want to put points into. Magicka Flood, we talked about this earlier, definitely awesome. Increase your max magic by 8%, and as you know, the more magicka you have, the more damage you do with your spells, so it's very important. Soul Siphoner, increase all healing from siphoning abilities by 15%. This is really, really awesome. Again, not only do you get bonus healing for Swallow Soul, 10% from that, but you get another 15 for Soul Siphoning. Just really good ability. And then Transfer bestows 2 ultimate when dealing damage with a siphoning ability. This is pretty awesome too, because Power Extraction hits 9 targets, and you're gaining a lot of ultimate when you're casting that. So especially as a healer or something in PvE in those group pulls, as long as you don't have to constantly heal, make sure you're using Power Extraction and regen your ulti very quickly. It's very, very good. And that's pretty much it. So let's just go through the rest of this dungeon, and I'll show you guys, you know, kind of the build that I've been running. We'll just go through here and kill some enemies. So this is an AoE pull. Well, not an AoE pull, it's just 2 enemies. But that's all I would do, really. Knock this guy down. Now, the best thing about a Nightblade is you don't take a lot of damage. Even in VR content, if your build is set up correctly, you really don't. You shouldn't be taking a lot of damage, and all the damage you do take during a pull will generally be just regen, because you are you know, killing things with Killer's Blade. So I don't know what enemies, what bosses in here, but we'll see if we can do some work on them. So I'm killing these guys because I want to get as much ultimate as I can. Dang, this guy's got a lot of health. And this is one of the reasons why I love wearing... Alright, see, this is an AoE pull. So if I switch to my other bar, this is actually my AoE spec. So what I'll do is I'll put... so there's a Droger Champion there. We don't want to put it on him because he has the most health. But I'll put Mark Target on this guy, so when I do this pull, when he dies, I'll get a huge influx of health, which will just help out a ton. So we'll even use Bat Swarm here. really didn't take much damage. I did use my ultimate right there, but it's all good. As you can see, one of the awesome things about using a Deathstroke is I literally had my ultimate up again just from killing those enemies. So I had 212% on my ultimate just from killing those enemies. So we got another AoE pull here. What we got here? This is where we gotta go. I gotta go in here. So we can find the boss. Oh, I remember this boss. So this boss has 7,000 health. Let's see if we can get close to one-shotting him. Let's see if we can one-shot him actually. I don't think I can, but we'll get really close. So I'll use my Resto staff here. We'll put my combat prayer on, which gives me additional damage. So let's see, we got one target there, one target, two targets there. We'll kill these two targets first.
No, I won't let you interrupt my research.
6,400 damage with the ultimate, and that, guys, is kind of the reason why I use Shadow Cloak and Veiled Strike. It's just really awesome. It works really well. Again, this is a VR5 area. I'm VR6. Guys, that's the video, the overview of my Nightblade. I really appreciate you watching the video. I hope it helped you out a little bit. If it did, please leave a comment, subscribe to the channel, and share the video with your friends. Thank you so much for watching. Peace!